I want to make some new zero clearance inserts and show you how to make a great one. The one important thing I've learned is don't slavishly copy the insert that came with your table. This is made of metal and it has different design considerations if you're making it out of something else. I'm making mine out of polyethylene. I don't want to, for example, put this hook into it because that's not necessary. And I'm going to show you a clever way to make an insert that fits snugly using a little bit of hot melt glue for a snug fit. I want to make 3 zero clearance inserts out of this piece of polyethylene. Now, most people slice it out of a cutting board because it's just the cheapest way to get the material. It's nice and hard, stiff. It's not going to flex. It has nice slippery properties, and I think it looks nice. I like the white. To cut this material, I'm using my Infinity Super General. I want to try to get this as close as I can, but I don't want to make it too narrow. So I think it's just going to be 0.5 millimeter wider than it needs to be. That's okay. I'm going to come at this very gently and not go too far. You can always take off more, but you can't put more on. I think if you have a belt sander and it's not going as fast as mine is, it's a pretty good tool for reshaping these ends. My disc is going way too fast and it melts the plastic easily and it kind of sucks it in, and you just don't have that much control. So I did manage to get a couple of ends done this way, but in my situation at least I prefer using a router. I've taken the one I just made, which I like, and I've attached it to the raw bottom one using blue tape and CA glue. And it's on really tight, and as you can see I have plenty of room here and just barely enough here, but that's okay, that should work. I have my router bit here that will let me trim. The router's going this way so as to work this way and not take off too much at a time. that's the blue tape, which is forever bonded by the CA glue. So that trick works pretty well. It's thinner than a lot of double-sided tape. I've discovered that the best thing for marking polyethylene is pencil. Pencil works really well and pen is really ineffective. A lot of times we just freehand things on the drill press, and it's good to add a bit of security with a clamp. And when you clamp something, clamp it on the left side of the work, on the rotationals, on this side of the work, not on this side of the piece, because if something is going to go wrong, if it's going to grab and swing your piece, it's going to take it this way. So this is a safety measure as well as a bit of support. On this Delta saw, there is a little shelf here all the way around the opening, so that you have to make a lip on your throat plate. I don't know if this is on many other saws or not, but that's pretty much has to be done on the router. So that's what we're going to do next. Now I've got my 5 cutouts and I've made my rim all the way around. So now let's see, now it's just a matter of seeing where the rough spots are. Oh, I have to make my hole. You see, if I push it in now, I won't get it back out because there's dust collection underneath. I won't be able to get my finger in there. So now I need to make my hole. And it's very important. You see, this hole is too close to the line here. So I want to make the hole down here toward the bottom. So I'll go do that now. In this case, I'm making the through hole all the way through the board. I'm doing it from the bottom so I know where my little landmarks are. And I'm using a big old clamp to make sure to clamp a piece of wood underneath to receive the bit as it goes all the way through the plastic. I wouldn't want to go into the metal table. That's it. So now I can give it a full try, see what needs to be done. Now it finally fits perfectly. The second one came out a little bit loose forward back, and you don't want that. You want to be nice and tight up here. But I was going to hot melt anyway, so my trick is to add a little hot melt at the heel and toe, and just not much, and that just gives it that snug fit. So it sticks very well to this plastic, and you don't need much. And it's easy to modify in case you have too much or you need more. Have to let it cool. Let's see. Better. I'm going to add a little bit here. I'm also going to, it'll raise it up a little bit here, which I want. So now I've just added a bit more here, and I scrubbed it there a bit. And then I put a little bit, just a lip right here, just a trace amount here, but now it just fits. You know, it's just snug and perfect. Like it's not, no amount of use is going to pull it out now. And it's just as flush as I would like it to be here. And here it's a little bit low, which is good because you're sort of dropping onto it. That's fine. I could make it higher, but I don't want to. And it just fits, you know, you don't need to have any kind of tongue that grabs anything. It's a very different thing from this metal piece because it's plastic, it has give in it, and it just drops right in. God, it's so nice. Now to put the kerf in this plate, I need to get the saw blade down below it and raise it up. And there's a problem, and I want table saw manufacturers to understand that many of us are making our own throat plates, and they're not helping us because this saw doesn't go down far enough. So I can't get the blade half an inch below the surface. This is, you know, pretty much right at the surface. This is the 7 1/4 inch blade, and it's very thin. It's thinner. This is a thin kerf, but this is thinner. This is probably 3/32. This is probably 1/16. So I have to come up with a way of making enough room to get the blade under to pop up through the insert. So I have the small blade in, and the trick is to just raise this blade up just to the top, just to the surface and not more. You see that? It's right there, but I didn't let it come through. I'm gonna let my normal blade do that, but it's still too thin. I have to move it over and make a second pass. I'm gonna widen this is just to add a shim. Is this a shim? No, it's a washer. It's the only one I've got like that, and it works. So now we'll see. It worked last time. If that goes on. Looks like it does. And that's just gonna start up okay. It hasn't been broken through yet, so it's gonna make its own kerf with the start I've given it using the 7 1/4 inch blade. And again, we're going to bring this here, and then we're going to raise it to I'll raise it to the full height now. And a lot of plastic is going to come at me, so I know very well that I need eye protection and I need something to protect from all the material flying out. I have a shield. It's going to come up quite high. I'm really sorry, this is going to be very hard to see, but there's just a shower of plastic particles coming up. So if you do this, get something in front of yourself so that you can deflect all the snow that comes up. If you look hard, you can actually see the blade. And that's it. That's how you make a zero clearance insert, and I'm ready for the splitter. Just trim this. The translucency helps you stop the smaller blade before it breaks through, and then you can back it off so you leave that curve here, but you have the right one here. There are a couple of options for making your initial kerf in your zero clearance insert if you don't have the smaller saw blade that I've been talking about. And one option is from Stumpy Nubs. He has a very good video on making your own insert, and he says you can just get out your fence and put the blade up and just run your blank through until it reaches the bottom of your existing throat plate right there. That'll give you the right exit point. Stop the saw blade, and then you'll have a plate with a kerf that goes all the way through. Now that gives you a chance to make a splitter out of hardwood, and he shows you how to do that and glue it in, and that closes up the end here. Alternatively, you could close it up by gluing in a small piece, and then you could drill for the micro jig splitters. Either way, so that's one way. You could just rip it and then close it. That's a good idea. The other way you could do it, I think that would actually work pretty well. There are a couple options. I think you could, for example, start with the plate that comes with the saw, okay, and you could just run tape around and tape this down. Then you could just put them down together, and if it's taped, you're done. You could just raise the blade up through, and the tape will hold it down while you could even add a little bit of pressure like this, and then raise it up, and that will work. And then another option is, without the tape, you could use a board like this. First of all, you would double stick tape this down so it stays registered. You wouldn't want that moving around. So you use double stick tape to get it down, and then you'd take a board like this, you'd lay it on top, and you'd clamp it at both ends. And then you just raise the saw blade up through the whole thing, right? And you just come right through this and just maximize the raise all the way, and then that'll give you your full kerf, and that'll just take a bit out of this piece here. So those are just a few extra options other than having to buy a smaller blade. And if you do buy a smaller blade, really get the right width. And if you can't, then you're going to be shimming. So it's a hassle either way. Now I have one saw thickness, but I need more because the other blade isn't going to go in there. So I need to move it over and make a second one. And I'm going to move it over by the thickness of this blade, which is less than 6 of these that I made yesterday. So I'll use 4 of these. I'll use 4 of these. That should give me about 1 kerf over. And that will widen this. I didn't go all the way through because I'm going to do that with the big blade. So I'm going to watch here again. Okay, that's good. Got the power. Now I have a wider curve Now, will this go down? It's not going to be easy. I might have to widen it. I use the red blade to make this wider and deeper. So when it was straight up and down, I was able to do it just keeping the red blade under, but in this case, I just don't have the room when it's at the 45-degree angle, so I'm gonna have to come through and really cut the curve. I'm gonna have to widen it and do all three versions, I think, and make it wider, and then I think I'll have room to bring the blade up through. So this is going to spray plastic at me. That's what this is for. Now I have to march it along here and get at least one more cut here. I don't know. I might have to do some handwork here. Ah, that's a good sign. That's a good sound. Okay, so now I'm in business. Finally. It's nice when it finally works. There's no room for a riving knife, so I'll have to investigate about splitting this, but I'm also not going to run it with the blade, if I run this with the fence on this side, I'll be trapping the workpiece, and that's very dangerous. And if I run it this way, which is how it's designed, I'll be not trapping, and so I won't have to worry about kickback. But as long as I use a good pusher, I'll be fine. So I'm not worried here. Plus, many of the 45-degree cuts, almost all of the 45-degree cuts I make will be with a sled. They'll be cross cuts. So only in the case where I'm ripping a bevel cut will I be having just to make sure that I keep it down, and then the waist piece will slide off because it has no pressure. What have I learned after making a bunch of throat plates? First, the stock insert is actually useful. I use it when I use my sanding disc. It works great for that. And I use it for my 1/4-inch blade, and it's fine for that. For the 45-degree, I hardly ever use it because almost all my 45-degree cuts are on the sled, and I can run the sled open with no insert. So this would only be for long rip cuts, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but I always have it. And on these main plates, there's an important difference here, and that's in stiffness. These plates I made earlier at the beginning are really pretty flexible. And that's why if you're making a plastic throat plate, I recommend do it this way. because this is much stronger and it just doesn't flex. So, and that flexing makes a big difference. So this is a killer insert, and really what makes it great is the hot melt, because it just plops in and kind of goes, you know, thud. And so even if you had a wooden insert, you could use a little bead of hot melt to just make it go thud. Another just detail that I think helps is that this is a little bit high here, so it drops down right here. I could feel resistance if I run my fingernail this way, so there's a small drop this way. And the same thing here. It's just a little bit high here, and there's a small drop onto the table here, and that's by design. I can easily adjust the hot melt to get whatever I want. You can carve up the hot melt, add, subtract, it's super easy. So there's a small drop here, and that just gives the piece an easy ride, and you don't have the risk that something may change and then you hit a little barrier. You know, you get a little bit of a resistance. So it just helps assure a smooth ride all the way through. I hope you watch my next video on making splitters.